Hello and welcome. I'm Al Barrows, and this is UFO Disclosure, the podcast that's meant to show an average person's reaction to all the UAP, UFO news from everywhere and anywhere. Today, I'll be covering some current events that have been happening recently, like the Amazon ring offer. I also have some real footage of some UFOs over Puerto Rico. Apparently, there's an orb drone camera that has a 360-degree angle that has come out on the market. I have a mini analysis of the Nazca mummies. Help finally arrives for the Kitu tribe that has been plagued by humanoid aliens attacking them. And be covering Dan Sheehan's huge historic plan on the UFO Disclosure. Tim Burchett also comments on the Schumer bill and much more. So Amazon's offering $1 million for anyone that can capture an alien sighting on their Ring doorbell. Everyone is encouraged to submit their alien footage to Amazon's company, where it will be reviewed by a special agency. If paranormal professional deems that video meets the scientific evidence theories, then a bunch of moolah will be awarded. Participants are also encouraged to create a hoax for much less money. Now, the problem that I have with that is that it encourages hoaxes, and there are way too many hoaxes out there already. On the good side, though, there are so many people, including myself, that have Ring doorbells that the chances of catching a UFO or an alien have increased exponentially now. I'd like to also now show some footage of a couple of jet fighters over Puerto Rico that intercept two UFOs. This was sent to me by my sister and was quickly taken down after it was put up. Okay, so this footage was taken over Puerto Rico. Only on a short while before it was taken off the internet. Clearly shows a couple of jet fighters intercepting some UFOs. This is the cockpit. Okay, so I just thought I'd show that it's actual footage of real UFOs, what that might look like. I don't expect that that's what the Ring footage would look like. Yeah, this came up, and I thought it was interesting because orbs had been associated with UFOs so often. And there's an interesting drone that came out recently with a 360-degree camera that looks just like the orbs that often are seen around crop circles. Very similar. I just thought that I'd show that because it could add some confusion to the whole UFO orb situation that Sean Kirkpatrick and Arrow are currently studying. There's been a lot of talk on social media about the Nazca or the quote unquote Mexican mummies that Jaime Maussan brought to the Mexican UAP hearings this past month, and whether there has been any real analysis. And I found this and just to show that there is real professional analysis going on. And this is Dr. Mary K. Jesse from the University of Colorado Hospital. She's examining the x-rays of the Nazca, one of the Nazca mummies. This one is called Alberto. Okay, so I just thought that I'd show a professional's opinion on the Nazca mummies. She referred to the eggs as ovoid shaped and that they're calcified. Didn't necessarily call them an egg, but it's interesting that she um, said that the way the spine was set up and the rib cage would be more reptilian. Okay, so this is an excerpt of a letter from a journalist and former advisor to the Peruvian government. Her name is Silvia Arispe Bazan, and it has to do with the recent attacks of the Quitu tribe in Peru. As I covered in my previous podcast, the Quitu tribe claims that aliens have been flying around and attacking the locals and possibly even abducting them. There's also a myth about a Bela Cara, a mythical being that abducts people and peels the skin from their faces. So this is just an update on the police and government finally stepping in, and hopefully they'll do something about it, especially if it is just illegal miners. I'm not sure how much they can do if it turns out that they're actual extraterrestrials. Okay, so Dan Sheehan was recently interviewed, and this is a post by Mike Colangelo, who made that great documentary on 7 Days with David Grush. He posted that Dan Sheehan has listed the milestones that will happen if the Schumer Amendment gets passed on December the 22nd of 2023. So remember, once the Schumer bill or the UAP Disclosure Act is passed, this into the National Disclosure Defense Act, once that is passed on December the 22nd, then things go into motion. The plan is that 9-person review board has to be formed. There are 45 days to submit candidate names once the UAP Act is passed, or the Schumer bill. The president reviews and selects candidates after March the 21st of 2024. The hearings are supposed to be held. Then agencies have 300 days to cough up any UFO data from their archives dating back to January the 1st of 1945. Any UFO data that is more than 25 years old has to be released to the public within 180 days after the review board receives it. Now, the president can decide to postpone the release of that data. Going to play a little bit of what Dan Sheehan has to say.
For the membership in the 9-person UAP record review board, that those are going to have to be prepared now because they're going to have to go to the president, because President Biden is going to be required to present these names within 90 days of the passage of the bill. The first major date that we're looking at right now is December 22nd of 2023. This is the date by which the National Defense Authorization Act is going to be passed, and we're going to have to then see what the full form is of this Schumer bill getting put into that National Defense Authorization Act. I'm hoping that what we're looking at here is substantially what's going to be going into that act. So then we're going to have to submit. We have to submit within 45 days. I say we because our New Paradigm Institute is one of the groups that's been authorized by the statute to actually submit names to the president. And so that our institute is now working on a list of people to present to the president. And the statute requires the president to review these names and to decide which of these people he wants to nominate. He is authorized to select other people other than those that we propose
ahead a bit.
passage of the statute, which would be right around March 21st of 2024. That they have 30 days within which to hold hearings on those people, just like the Senate agencies have 300 days, approximately 1 year, during which they are charged with responsibility for extracting every single piece of information their agency or department has ever possessed since January 1st of 1945 and collating it and putting it into a format that is retrievable.
Okay, so that was the 300-day plan. You have to wonder, though, doesn't that give them 300 days to then hide this data and materials?
It has digital recovery capacity. There's all kinds of has come from any of those government agencies or private military contractors that is more than 25 years old, has to be released to the American public within 180 days.
Wow.
This covers Roswell, this covers Aztec, this covers all kinds of the information. That orders it to be continually postponed, okay? And then the information that's turned over to the board, they have 90 days within which they have to file their report. They have to file a public report that is going to be made public about how much documentation they've already acquired, what the schedule is for releasing all of this information, and they have to get reports every 90 days. So there's all kinds of details in this statute that Stephen has made available to you now, is now posted, and you go through it and you can actually figure out a calendar so that we have these points of December 22nd of 2023. We have the dates of 45 days from then when we submit the nominees. We have the dates 90 days from that point of date up into March 21st when the president has to submit it to the Senate. The Senate has 30 days to hold the hearings. Then there's another 300 days. We have a very specific calendar in front of us right now to answer that question of what's next. And we know that this is happening, but we're talking about basically 1 year. During that 1 year period, all of these agencies have to cough up this information and put it into the hands of this group, and then they have to release it within 180 days. This is a huge historical event that is taking place right as we speak. And then any of the information that is withheld for any reason whatsoever has to go into a special program, and they are ordered to present to the president a controlled disclosure campaign plan. That is the actual terminology in the statute. A controlled disclosure campaign plan has to be presented to the president. And all of this has to get done within a total of a 7-year period starting in 2024 because there's a sunset clause on the life of this board.
Okay. So a controlled disclosure plan. He pretty much lays it out there. And Dan Sheehan is a constitutional lawyer. I thought I would include that because he goes into the finer details of the plan. And I'd like to move on to Tim Burchett comments on the Schumer bill, if I may. Okay, so Tim Burchett is talking about the Schumer amendment, and he says that Chuck Schumer is coming out with a bill in the NDAA, or the National Disclosure Amendment Act, and all the UFO people are going crazy. That is the greatest thing in the world. They're going to create the entity within the government Pentagon, and anything to do with UFOs goes through them, and they decide if it gets out. So if it's a national defense issue, a government security issue, they won't release it. So he's being pretty pessimistic.
People are going crazy. This is the greatest thing in the world. Chuck Schumer's coming out with a bill in the NDAA, the National Defense Reauthorization Act, that will say that, and all the UFO people are going crazy. This is the greatest thing in the world. They're going to create this entity within government, within the Pentagon, that anything to do with UFOs goes to them, and they decide if it gets out. So, and guess what? If it's a national defense issue, or if it's a government security issue or whatever, they won't release it. Well, guess what? All of it is. Yeah. They're never going to release. That just puts another layer. All I'm saying is, brother, I can handle it. You can handle it. Put it out there. Let us.
Okay, so that pretty much surprised me that Tim Burchett would say that after Dan Sheehan's announcement that everything was going full steam ahead. Tim Burchett, of all people, you would think that he would be a bit more positive. He seems to be steering more towards the negative side now. And maybe he's become jaded. I'm not so sure. I mean, when Tim Burchett talks like that, after all his efforts in trying to get disclosure hearings going, you wonder whether we're ever going to have more hearings again, or whether we're actually going to have disclosure. I'm going to see if I can share a clip that I have of President's reactions after being asked by several talk show hosts whether they know about aliens or whether aliens exist, or have they ever come across any information on aliens while they've been in office.
Documents. Because if I... Did you go through the secret files, the UFO documents? Because if I was president, that'd be the first thing I did.
You know, it's funny. My daughters asked the very same question.
They did?
Yeah.
UFOs. You've been the president. You've seen all the info. Are they real?
The truth is that we've never proved one, but there are things flying around up there that we haven't fully identified yet.
Would you be allowed to tell your daughters what was in those files?
No.
You would not?
No.
Now that you're out of office, you can do anything you want, right?
True, yeah. But I'm not telling you.
You're not telling... You're not telling me what? Are you not telling me that you looked at them?
I'm not telling you nothing.
If I was the president, and it's unlikely that that is ever going to happen.
You never know.
My hand would just, it'd still be hot from touching the Bible, and I would immediately race to wherever they have the files about Area 51 and the UFOs, and I'd go through everything to find out what happened.
Right.
Did you do that?
That's why you will not be president. Because that's the first thing that you would do.
If you become president, are you really going to tell the truth about UFOs?
I have said I want to open the files as much as we can. But there are enough stories out there that I don't think everybody is just sitting, you know, in their kitchen making them up.
Recently, when UFOs came up on Jimmy Kimmel, she corrected his terminology.
And you know, there's a new name. It's unexplained aerial phenomenon.
All this talk about dem aliens with the you know, what are they, UAFs or whatever they call them, you know, all the footage and everyone talking about it. It's like, but I was wondering if you have a theory about that.
Well, when it comes to aliens, there's some things I just can't tell you on air.
What's your viewpoint on what these objects that seem to defy all laws of physics are?
Well, first of all, that's a legitimate question now. The short answer, but not the most meaningful one, is I don't know about this. But when I was president and I had a chief of staff, John Podesta, who loved science fiction, we made every attempt to find out everything about Roswell. And we also sent people to Area 51 to make sure there were no aliens in a deep... there's no aliens, as I know.
So did you look? Did you see? Did you explore?
I can't reveal anything.
Oh, really? Because President Clinton said he did go right in, and he did check, and there was nothing.
Well, you know, that's what we're instructed to say.
Are there really great secrets that you know that you can't share with people?
Yeah.
Yeah, there are. And you never write about them?
No.
Maybe at a time in your life that you're like, oh, I'm 90, I'm going to do it.
No.
No, nothing. What if you were to get like a little like loopy, you know? You get old and...
Start drinking again?
Start drinking again.
Yes, right there.
So you have interviewed a lot of presidents before, and I wanted to ask you if any of them told you if aliens were real.
Oh! I asked Obama. I asked Obama if aliens were real.
UFOs? Any UFOs? Did you ask about that? certainly asked about it.
And?
Can't tell you. Sorry.
Okay. All right, I'll take that as a yes.
He said he wouldn't answer the question. I said, well, that's a yes.
Because if there were none,
Why
you'd say
not?
there was none, right? You just played your hand. I thought you were a poker player. You just 100% showed your river card.
Feel free to think that.
I do.
I was just thinking about that the other day. Wasn't it just like a year ago that we got the report and then the people, like members, like the Secretary of the Navy or something went on 60 Minutes and said, yeah, it's real. And we're all just going on with our lives.
I know, it's crazy.
How are we just going on with our lives when we know that there are real UFOs out there? I think they're softening up the beach. They're just like, okay, they handled the video and the proof pretty well. Now let's let them know that there are aliens, because they're afraid we're going to freak out.
So he's pretty much talking about a soft disclosure there, which is possible. I thought that was very entertaining. Reason why I showed that is because after Tim Burchett's reaction to the Schumer bill, you start wondering whether we're ever really going to have disclosure. Now we have, unfortunately, we have a flare-up in the Middle East. Hamas has attacked Israel, and there has been a declaration of war. Someone sarcastically posted this the other day about how Hamas actually planned the attack to specifically take away interest in UAP NHI coverage. And I'm sure that was done sarcastically. And all my respect and deep sympathy to the families that are suffering in the Middle East now. It's just a sad situation all around that this can't be resolved diplomatically. But it also makes me think about the Dr. Greer Press Club event back in the day, back in 2001, when he first had his first press club event. I'm not talking about the one that he just had this past July, which I covered in one of my podcasts with my sister. But the one that he originally had in 2001, the first press club event, where he had all those witnesses that came out. And what happened during that time, unfortunately, in 2001, also 9/11 happened. And the press club event took a back seat. Nothing ever went through to Congress, and the hearings never took place back in 2001. Here we are 22 years later, and finally we have one UAP hearing. I'm wondering whether this new war in the Middle East might do the same, might place the UAP hearings in the back burner. Hoping that's not the case, but I couldn't help but see the similarity in both situations. I like to move on now and follow up on my last podcast where I showed my visit to Area 51 front gate and back gate. And I mentioned that there were certain nefarious activities going on behind those gates. I specifically talked about, briefly mentioned Bob Lazar having worked in S4. Okay, so in my last podcast, I showed video of me at the front and back gates of Area 51. I showed a quick audio clip from the Art Bell show of a distressed ex-employee who had claimed that there was nefarious activities going on that affected large populations of the Earth that were going on inside of Area 51. I came across this article where the journalist Vicky Verma reveals Bob Lazar's astonishing claim that extraterrestrials see humans as containers of souls. This was discussed on the Joe Rogan podcast recently by ufologist Jeremy Corbell and the famous George Knapp. They discussed the possibility that humans were genetically engineered by non-human intelligences for nefarious purposes. And the fact that some individuals within the government are aware of this. And Knapp himself mentions in the article that he knows someone of high ranking in the US military that knows about this and knows that specifically human conflict and specifically war, i.e., we have a war that just started now in the Middle East. Knapp says that specifically war and human conflict is sometimes intentionally designed by a non-human intelligence through manipulation. Now, during the podcast, George Knapp discusses Bob Lazar and mentions that Lazar was told while working on the quote-unquote program that humans were viewed by extraterrestrials as quote-unquote containers of souls. Now, this might sound bizarre and fictional to a lot of people, but Lazar himself said that himself. Another item that I'd like to share is a video that features Rob Schneider. I'm sorry, Phil Schneider. Okay, so David Grush was asked during the House Oversight Committee hearing if he had heard of anyone being killed in the alleged cover-up of UFO secrets. And he replied, and I quote, "I can't rule that out. I've heard rumors of that, but I don't have direct knowledge of that." Here's one whistleblower case Grush most certainly learned of. Phil Schneider, a government geologist and engineer with over 17 years of experience working on quote-unquote black projects, was undoubtedly one of the most important whistleblowers in modern history. Less than 6 months after giving a presentation where he exposed the New World Order agenda and how it connects with extraterrestrials, he was found dead in his own apartment with a piano wire wrapped around his neck in what most would classify a military-style execution. His cause of death was ruled a suicide. Listen to Schneider recount in his own words the most terrifying extraterrestrial encounter of his career.
Programs, government geologist, as engineer, structural engineer with aerospace applications, self-taught metallurgist. In working with the black projects, I was involved in something very controversial, almost totally unbelievable to most of you. I was involved in building another base inside of Dulce, New Mexico, which is Los Alamos Laboratory, on the southwest part of the Archuleta Mesa. We were in the process of the early stages of building. We drilled 4 large tunnel-like holes. Some of them ran 2.5 miles under the surface. Anyway, after we drilled all 4 holes, it took about 2 days to drill all 4 of them. And when you build an underground base, you drill 4 basic holes, and then you build called stopes or cross-member holes across, and then you use blasting equipment, and you literally blast out or tunnel out or deflagrate or melt rock out. The equipment kept coming up broken. So we wanted to go down and we wanted to send somebody down there, a human observer, or human observers in this case, to find out what was going on. When I saw Green Beret and Black Beret people encamped inside of our geologist camp, I knew something was up, the gig was up. In this process, I was lowered down the basket of one of these holes, and about from me to this elderly woman here in the front was sitting a 7-foot-tall alien gray. The stench was worse than the worst garbage can you can imagine. I didn't waste any time. I reached for my pistol. At that time, as an engineer, I didn't have time to carry all the Folderol of one of these big submachine guns that all the sea spray and the yellow fruit and the outer perimeter and inner perimeter security people carried. I carried a little Walter PPK pistol with a 9-shot clip. Plus, you're in almost like a spacesuit environment, and you're reaching for a gun. It's not the easiest thing to do, and then to pop a clip in it and start shooting. And I killed 2 of them. Yes, they're mortal, and they do die. However, in the process, one of them did this. All I remember is that he just kind of waved his hand in front of his chest, and the next thing I know, this blue beam hit me and just literally opened me up like a fish. It was some form of electrical force, because the kind of like being hit by a lightning bolt burned all my toenails off of me. And there was a Green Beret that was right behind me, but he risked his life. He shoved me back in the basket and hit the button and took me up. And I wouldn't be alive talking to you today if it wasn't for him. I'm forever indebted. He lost his life. 66 Secret Service agents, Green Berets, Black Berets, crack troops lost their lives because the government, our United States government, lied, did not tell us anything about the alien threat. There's a war underneath there, and I'm talking dead serious. The military's known about the alien question for the better part of 70 years. Right now, there are 131 active deep underground military bases in the United States. There's 1,477 of them worldwide. It'd take a year to 2 years to build each one, and now they're capable of building a couple of them a year with sophisticated methods. My colleague Al Bielik has actually been on some of the high-speed railways, the magneto-leviton trains that connect all the deep underground military bases within the United States. He's been on a Mach 2 train and floats off of a single rail at 3/4 of an inch off the rail, and we have nothing like this on the surface. Groom Lake is where the infamous Area 51, S4, S2, it was later become the most secret base in the United States. We built 9 underground military bases there, each with an average capacity capable of basically a city underground, roughly 4.25 cubic miles hollowed out underground. Now, boring machines, for instance, they don't bore, they literally vitrify and melt the rock, deflagrate the rock. It's a very sophisticated laser melting and deflagrating system. It reduces the rock to a powder and then melts the remaining rock as a coating on the inside of the base, so you don't have to use gunite cements and other kinds of things like that. That's all old hat now.
Phil Schneider gave most of his lectures in 1995. He gained a following speaking around the United States, telling people about his alleged experiences. Phil claimed that he personally knew people who also worked in black budget programs who were murdered, and that most of them were made to look like a suicide.
There's a good chance that when I fly back to to Vegas, I have to drive home. I left my car down in Vegas. I have to drive home alone. I'm scared to hell.
On January 17th, 1996, after not being seen for at least 5 days, Phil Schneider was found dead in his apartment by his landlord and a detective from the Clackamas County Sheriff's Office. The autopsy report listed the cause of death as unknown, but it was later discovered that Phil was actually strangled by his own catheter hose. Was this a case of negligence or a cover-up?
There's a number of you ladies present, so I won't gore you out, but Al has seen some of the wounds, and there's a few other people that have been to a few of my other lectures, and they can attest that I have been shot. I've been run off the road. I've been pushed off the road. Probably the reason I got shot to pieces and 11 attempts on my life is I am a direct threat to the entire system. The New World Order, the alien, one and the same. It's world takeover and the decimation of the population of this planet. There are 9 races of alien populations. To look at a human being as a bag of food. They're not cannibals. They don't eat the flesh and the bones and all that kind of stuff. They use the glandular secretions of animals and human beings as a mixture of the vitamins for their food. They get high off of our adrenal gland substances called adrenochrome. It's something like cocaine to them. And you'll keep seeing more and more people disappear. Right now, there's 100,000 children totally unaccountable through FBI archives, cannot be traced anywhere. They haven't been murdered. Nobody's ever seen them. I think they're hauled underneath in some of these bases, and they are summarily done away with, and they are literally eaten. Now, that is a scary thing indeed.
Deep underground military bases. Extraterrestrials living beneath Earth's surface. A race that might not even be from another planet, but rather one that has existed here, in the shadows, throughout mankind's entire development. Is this the biggest cover-up in our history? Or just another conspiracy theory? We still have no definitive proof that any of these claims are true, which is all the more reason why this just might be one of the greatest journalistic responsibilities of our time.
And I'm not asking you to believe me in total. I am asking you to seriously do enough homework that you can go out in through the public record, through the congressional records, find out who's voting for what, and go from there. Do your own program, do your own agenda, and do your own speaking out. And if enough of us do this, there is some saving grace.
Okay, so that was Phil Schneider, geologist that was involved in building 9 underground bases at Area 51, or as they call them, DUMBs. If what he says is true, we should all do our own research and find out what's really going on with this alien situation. I'm Al Barrows. This has been UFO Disclosure. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. I have a website, UFO-Disclosure. And you can check me out on Instagram at UFO Disclosure Podcast and Twitter at UFO Disclosure with an underscore at the end. All my love and good intentions go out to all, and my heartfelt condolences to all the families that are undergoing all the trauma now in the Middle East. I hope and pray that the situation can finally be resolved diplomatically and that everyone will be safe soon. Thank you for listening, and I hope this is some form of a distraction and comfort to those out there.